Well, did I get humbled? I guess is the correct word. This is the first day I've ever played Monster Hunter World without racking up a single kill. In fact, up until this day, I've racked up several new, fresh kills, but today, not a single one. Things changed. So this has, like, kicked my analytic brain into overdrive as to what is going on here. So, what happened? I started the day, and immediately I was presented with, like, multiple special assignments. I had two already. One was a Raging Brachy, and the other one was a Furious Reggie. Something along those lines. And I was like, right, that's our goal for today. We've got our appropriate gear set, I suppose is what you could say. We did loads of, like, dragons and raids and things at the last raid. It was all very exciting. And my character felt decent and strong. I was like, all right, cool, this is what we're going to do. But then I had a bunch of other ones. And the first one was a new enemy that I'd never seen before called Alatreon. And I was like, oh, we've got something new. And that excites me more than, like, the modified versions of the other bosses. So I was like, oh, cool, we can do something new and interesting. And so I decided I'm going to go and check those things out first. I'm going to check out Alatreon first to see what that's like. And then decide where we're going to go. Because Reggie, I just fought Reggie. I wasn't exactly super excited to fight Reggie again. Certainly like an enhanced Reggie, considering how brutal and nasty that thing was. And a Brachy's I dealt with a long time ago. At this point, I was like, you know, kind of not interested in that one. So I went against this Alatreon, which was a dragon. Now, Alatreon was not that bad, actually. But one thing the game was stressing to me was a couple of things. It felt like it was indicating to go multiplayer. It was, once again, giving me the dialogue options of go and, you know, get a group of hunters together, go and do this kind of stuff. I was like, okay, so have we got another raid here? You know, those kind of, it fit the format of what we had with Behemoth and what we had with the other dragon, I forget his name. But those things. So I was like, okay, maybe we've got another raid here, but similar to my last endeavor against fighting Unknown Dragon, whatever it's called. It's the modified Xeno. I was like, oh, it's called Safi or Sarah, something like that. Whatever dragon that is. I was like, well, maybe we have a really sort of like interesting solo encounter first, you know, to repel it, and then you get the raid, which is what happened with Sarah. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go check this out. It was interesting because, and I'll tell you now, I did have to ask because it's constantly, the dialogue from the handler is constantly spamming you. Is like, this boss uses all the elements, which it did, and they weren't super awkward to manage. It had like an AoE on frost under itself, which I recognized. It had lightning around the floor. It had fire. So it had all these different element types. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But relatively easy to hit from what I could see. But then it does like this big room-wide AoE where I went and hid behind a pillar of frost they had made, which did not help at all. And the handler was like, prepare the healing, it's about to get wacky. But throughout all of this, the handler is spamming you that you need an elemental weapon in order to do something to the boss. Like, it was very, very straight up. You must have an elemental weapon to nullify the elements of the boss. So I got my brain thinking, it's like, well, what element would I want to block here? So there's like science to do. It's like because the understanding I'm getting from the handler's dialogue is that if, let's say I bring a frost weapon, that will nullify the frost damage or weaken the frost damage, or some, you know, fire weapon will nullify the fire damage. So I was like, okay, but which element would I like to block here? And so I was thinking about my resistances. I'm pretty low in, I'm like negative in thunder, I think, something like that. And I was like, so maybe I want a thunder weapon to nullify the thunder damage or something along those lines. And I'm like working through this when the AoE came out and just flat out killed me, like the frost AoE, which I have pretty good resist to. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, we don't line of sight this, which we do on, you know, Behemoth and we do on Sarah. So it's not that. We just have to be able to survive this. And I'm wondering if, and this is where I had to go to the I will admit I went to the audience for this. I was wondering, it's like, is it a case of it just an elemental weapon will stop this AoE from like one banging me? Because it like ticks very quickly and kills you. Because they'd like spam the healing, put down like a healing booster and things like that. So I was like, is that what this is? And so I did it the usual way, which is like I posed the question and our good lady Bex comes into my Discord to tell me the answer. And she just said, you cannot do this right now. I was like, okay, that's fair. So we've got a shopping list menu to do, right? We've got a shopping list menu of go and get an elemental weapon, pick one, and then something different will happen with this fight. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, it seems okay for now, but we can't survive, seemingly, because something different will happen. What that is, I don't know. But that was the case with Alatreon. A nasty fight, but not too bad. So then I was like, where to go next? And I decided I'll do the Brachas, because I fought Reggie the day before, or the last time we played. So I was like, I'll do Brachas. I couldn't kill this. This is now the most pulled boss of the game for me. And I'm shocked, because I never died to this boss previously, Brachas. I never died to this, and now it is easily the most attempted boss I've had. So what changed? And that's what was puzzling me. What changed? Now, obviously, given the blind nature of our playthrough, some mechanics we just haven't clicked or anything like that. And I do want to announce right here, right now, is we are doing, it seems appropriate, the team's agreed, who knows what's coming, we are doing the full spoiler reveal of everything I've missed on Monday at 5 p.m. live with Rurakan. We'll be doing it on a podcast, because that enables Rurakan to sort of like target specific things without, thousands of spam messages of trying to get messages out all at once. It's a bit of an overwhelming. We'll be doing it in a podcast format where whatever I've missed, all will be revealed. The full spoiler thing will be happening on Monday, regardless, at 5 p.m. That will be live. We'll have a link down below where you can catch it and things like that. It'll be on my live stream as well, so you can find it there when we actually do it. So if you want to be a part of that, and you've been typing furiously in the TDP comments like, why isn't he doing this, or why hasn't he found this yet, that's when it's going to be happening. I don't know what awaits me. I really don't. I'm a little nervous, because coming back to Brachas, why couldn't I kill it? It essentially two-shot me every single time I took damage. And if I took damage and had a brief respite to try and, like, heal up, it would do something that killed me immediately after. This is the only boss, I think, that has been able to literally kill me the second I've walked into the arena, because it's charged me, sometimes without me even knowing where it is. I know it's in this battle arena, and I've walked in, and it's already been charging at me, knocked me to the floor, and then just blown me up. And I'm just like, I'm dead. I'm just dead immediately. It has hard counters to nearly everything I want to do. It's basic, and here's the weird thing. It's just the damage intake, right, that's been stopping me. The damage intake from the boss itself. Its actual mechanics, I'm kind of cool with. It's got explosive goo all over it that it generates over time. It goes from yellow to orange. When it's orange, it means its attacks now carry a very, very wide radius explosion. So if it punches the floor, it does a huge explosion. If it drags its arms on the floor, it does a huge explosion. If it headbutts, it does a huge explosion. If its tail hits the floor, it does a big explosion. But you can counter this in a number of ways. You can either just do damage to it, and they're very weak. Like 2 melee hits, sometimes 1, will cause this goo to fall to the floor and nullify that mechanic temporarily. I'll come back to that. But then on the floor, that immediately explodes. So if you commit to more than... This is where it got tricky with it. It's either 1 or 2 hits. You have to very much remember how much damage you've done to that already. Because if you'd hit it once, the next hit is going to drain it off. So if you hit the button twice, it will fall off and explode because it explodes almost immediately when it falls off before you can get out of that animation. So it became a case of like, hit it once. If you'd forgotten how much damage you'd done to it, check if you had to move out the way, and then go again. I also applied it to the head. So if you've got wall bangs or anything like that, you have to be very careful, because if you tried to unleash like a devastating combo upon the head, but its head was explosively charged, then it's going to put a big explosion right under the head where you're DPSing. So you had to like ease in and out. You can also use water. Now, I don't have a water weapon, but there's water moss everywhere. So you can pick it up for your slinger, and you can shoot the body parts, and that will remove it from a distance. That seemed really cool until I saw that it can immediately regenerate it. And I'm talking immediately. You can shoot it, it will fall off, explode, and then it will just go red again. And I was like, oh, okay. And I have to say, I don't know whether it's controller or age or whatever it is, but the clutch claw specific targeting on such an erratic boss, and he's very erratic, he's all over the place, ain't the easiest thing in the world. Like, very, 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 very regularly, I would be targeting the exact spot I want to hit. It would be orange for that second that I've brought up the reticle. Fire, and by the time the thing has traveled, the arm is either on the other side of the room or it's somewhere else. It's just gone. And you're like, okay, so what's happening here? And so when I came to the end of the stream, I was like, we haven't actually killed a boss, and I'm not even sure I'm making really good progress. Like, I had some really good pulls where I felt like I did a ton of damage. I got some good combos that I was happy with, which was like, weaken the head, bash it, opportunity to wallbang it, big damage, right? And then nullifying it, and got down to like the 4th battle arena and stuff like that, and parts were falling off it, all that kind of stuff. But I'm still, like, not sure whether we're anywhere near the end of this fight, because I know it has a huge amount of HP. And the way I'm telling that, I think, we'll find out on Monday, is that wallbang is a percentage of health. And it's like 700 to 800, which, if it's like a few percent, it's got thousands upon thousands of HP. And so I was like, okay, I need to rethink how I'm approaching this. So let's reflect. I think that's the important thing. Let's reflect, because it could be a number of things that are happening here. Firstly, it's a skill issue. Obviously got to accept that as like, this is different. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Second, we need to be at this point in the game, like Alatreon is a clue of this, because they're all master rank 6, I think, is that we should have variety gear sets and variety things, because it also stacks on me a debuff. I think I'm calling it blast because it's what makes sense. And occasionally it just blows up and knocks my character over. I think I had this earlier in the game. But I haven't got anything that like nullifies that in any way, shape, or form. And it can do like a good third of your HP. And considering the boss has a couple of attacks which do 80% of my health, that's a problem. You know what I mean? That's a problem. Regularly, I would be on full health, and then it would like hit me with something, and it'd be like, okay, you got 10% health left, and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. And this is spamming consumables all the way. So skill issue is the first one. Again, I'll come back to it. The second one is like, we need this variety of gear. We should have a water weapon or an ice weapon, because according to the ecology report, I did check, it's very weak to ice. So it's like, okay, we probably need an ice weapon or a water weapon, something along those lines, which will enable it to be stunned more, generally just do more damage, you know, flinch it more, things like that, and give us these opportunities to like knock it down, because we were doing damage to it, but not really getting the results I wanted to see out of it. And let's go back to the skill issue then. Has the game, and this is what I had to ask myself, got to the level now where essentially it wants you to play hitless? I would not welcome that here. I welcome that in a number of games, particularly the Soul series, which I've referenced a lot. Like, I'm okay with that if that's how that's working. But also in those games, you can just, this is too much incoming damage. You can modify your gear in a way that like dramatically reduces that at the cost of damage, typically, right? A lot of people have done that. A lot of people have played like entire stone sets because I just don't take that much damage, but I'm not going to do a lot, but I get to survive. You can work around that. And I was hoping for that here, and which might be the case. However, I have to accept that maybe at this level where we are at now, we've reached that sort of like tippy or close to the tip where it's like, no, because I have good gear, right? As far as I know, my gear is pretty good. It's upgraded as much as I can possibly do it. I can't augment it yet, which is further increasing its power, but it's not far behind as far as I can tell. And it's a case of, no, you really do have to just start playing hitless here. This is close to hitless. You really need that opportunity. So I was like, okay, I've talked earlier, and why don't I welcome that if I welcome it in other games? If it is that. I don't know if it is. It can be, the game could be a little janky sometimes. It could be a little janky with where the hitboxes land and things like that. It's not that tight to warrant that sort of play. But also you can recognize the movesets, in which case you can learn the quirks. So I can do that, and that's okay. It's just not, it's never happened in this game. It hasn't been that kind of game. I've looked at it from current eyes, and I will say I noticed after I finished the stream and I came back after we'd done some filming, is that people were discussing, like, in a very dramatic way, of like, I don't know why he doesn't expect it to just one-shot him now. I was like, because the game never did that. That's why. The game was never like that. The game was more resource-orientated. Like, extremely punishing. So I think back to, like, Barrioth. Like, very, very punishing. But then became a battle of managing your resources. in order to counter it. Now, this then brings me back to the discussion that we had about the item box being available at the camp, which means resources aren't a thing. And therefore, maybe this is how they've countered that at this level, is by making it so it's like you kind of just get your butt whipped if you make mistakes because you have infinite resources. So how do we increase the difficulty of the game towards the end, knowing you have access to infinite resources? And I'm like, that kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense. I just don't know if it fits yet. I'm not making a decisive decision here. These are just the thoughts that are mulling through my brain about that being the case. Is it's everything before this was not like that, where it was like, okay, there was occasional combo wombos, but this has very regular combo wombos. And I'm like, okay, all right, we'll see. And maybe it's just an adaptation of how I'm looking through the game. That could be a thing. Let's go to number 2, the gear. There is something I know I'm missing. And so what I decided to do for my next strategy, how am I going to tackle this? Because we're not giving up, obviously. One, we either focus down, learn every boss pattern and go that way. But the other thing I want to try first, which fits more with what I've seen through the game so far and the indications given by like the Alatreon fight, is we need a variety of gear to adapt ourselves to the game. Because as a monster hunter, that makes way more sense to me than bosses just clap you in 1 or 2 hits, and sometimes 1 hit, right? Because you get stunned and then it'll do a follow-up before you can do anything. You can't control your character again. So we need things. What things do we need? Firstly, I'm missing at least 2 mantles that I know exist. And they're from the base game, as far as I can tell. I'm definitely missing the fireproof cloak, and I'm missing another cloak that it mentions later on in the game. I can't remember the name of it. It's not champion, it's something else. So I'm definitely missing a couple of these things. Those would be options. Right now, I have a Thunderproof Cloak Plus, which I'm using for everything, because I'm using it to keep the bonuses up, even if it's not doing Thunder, but it's the only one I really have. And so I'm going to... My first step is, let's have all the options that I can get available to me. That makes a lot of sense. Like, do I get a fireproof cloak? Is there a blast-proof cloak? I don't know. I've done everything in the base game that is optional with a quest attached to it. But I was made aware in the podcast, is like, there are certain triggers for things to activate in Monster Hunter that aren't exactly obvious. They're not going to just give you the quest for the Thunderproof Cloak, and then the Iceproof Cloak, and then the Vitality Cloak, and then the Fire Cloak. That's not how it works. Something kind of obscure in some occasions will happen that then unlocks that ability, and you don't have it. And I know this because as Rurikard, who's thousands and thousands of hours into the game, pointed out, is like, last time he did a playthrough, he forgot what the trigger was for some of the things, right? It's one of those things that you either stumble into or you look up or whatever, but he forgot it. He had to go back and check. He had to Google, like, what is the actual trigger that makes this happen? So whatever it is, I'm going to go and find that. I'm going to go and get those options. And then I think I'm going to have to get a variety of elemental weapons anyway, because I'm going to need them from Alatreon. So I'm going to do that too. And I'm going to have just a few more options to throw at this rather than being like a one-set Andy, which is very antithetical to how this game wants you to play. That I know for sure. The game wants you to be killing monsters, getting their hides and getting their things, and then building a character that can counter the enemy you're currently fighting, especially when they're very, very hard. Now, it won't make it easy. That's not what I'm looking for. But it should make it so you're not ideally just getting one shot, right? That would be the idea. Because when I say one shot, what I'm meaning is like an attack that does 60% of your health, but also knocks you down, and then it'll do... The big one for me was the punch stomp combo. If you got caught by the punch, it exploded, knock you back, and the radius is very big, so you could get hit by this reasonably easily. It would knock you back to the floor, have you lay on the floor, and then he would charge you and punch you again. And you can't move your character during that process, so you're just dead. So that's what I want to do next. I think that's the first strategy is, one, let's have all the cards on the table so I can pick and choose a little bit more freely. And then if it comes down to it's like, well, you have the stuff, but it's still like this, then that's the route we'll go for first. I know I'm not the best at the game, by far. I'm fully aware of that. I do not have the thousands of hours that a lot of people do, and I haven't researched anything. I haven't Googled anything. I don't know, like, the optimal switch axe rotation. You know, I'm working with what I feel is right, but there's probably something better and really min-maxy about it. Exactly the right opportunity that you can slide into a clutch claw and things like that. I don't know those things, but I'm doing my best. and then see where we go from there. All right? So it's been a humbling day. Not the most, like, progress-wise, maybe it is good in a different way, because we learned a lot. But what options have we got? So that's the next goal, is find tools and options that may help out here. All right? So stay tuned. But you're looking at a very defeated Preach, but we don't remain defeated for very long. So I'll be back. All right? Bye, guys.